Hello, and welcome to NAIFA Live. I'm your host, Zach Hewells. We are very excited to have you join us virtually for this month's NAIFA Live as we continue our year-long celebration of our 130th anniversary of NAIFA. Today, we'll be joined by NAIFA's own Brian Haney. And during the presentation, we'll have a few polling questions for you. We'll be having a Q&A as well, but the polling questions will appear on your screen and you'll be able to answer them right in your Zoom window. So if you have any questions yourself for Brian during his presentation, feel free to use the Q&A feature in Zoom and we'll do our best to get to them at the end of the presentation. But now it's my pleasure to introduce Dan Altmeyer, President of NAIFA, Greater Washington, D.C., to recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Dan. We appreciate it. And now we are going to turn things over to NAIFA CEO, Kevin Mayu. Kevin?
Awesome. Well, good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for NAIFA Live today. Just wanted to cover a couple of things. One, thank you again for your continued membership in NAIFA. I think over the past few months, as we've all been dealing with this COVID-19 crisis, I think we've seen the true strength of the NAIFA community and all the great things we can do together. Some of that started when we were all going to get together just about a month ago in Washington, D.C. for our annual congressional conference, which is the largest legislative fly-in in the entire industry. We had to again pivot because Congress was closed and so was the hotel. And we had NAIFA Nation Impact Week. Let me tell you, that week was an incredible success. During the course of 3 days, we had 5,000 people gather and attend NAIFA offerings. On Tuesday, the 19th, we had more than 1,200 folks at our diversity symposium. What a great opportunity to share ideas about how we as a profession can better serve all Americans, how we can reach discrete communities within our society, how we can recruit more quality folks of all different backgrounds to become part of this profession and also become part of NAIFA at some point. Just an incredible day. The next day for our Advocacy and Action Day, we had a bunch of members of Congress join us along with the best government relations team in the entire profession. That's your team at NAIFA that works for you every day in state capitals around the country and in Washington, D.C. We heard from them just a tremendous opportunity. More than 1,300 folks attended that day. And then on Thursday, the 21st, we wrapped it up with the Leadership Day, where we learned again how to be servant leaders, how to communicate better with our team members and our clients. And then we heard from Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, and we had about 2,500 people attend that day. If you did not have a chance to check out NAIFA Nation Impact Week, all of those sessions are now available on demand. So all you've got to do is go to the NAIFA website, click on a couple of buttons, and you can watch any of those sessions as your schedule allows. So they're all there for you to watch in digestible chunks. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely incredible. Also, we've all seen the outpouring of cries for justice over what happened with George Floyd a couple of weeks ago in his tragic murder. And NAIFA is proud by the fact that we serve Main Street Americans and we look after people from all different backgrounds. And so we joined with our friends and colleagues at ACLI, with the American College, with LIMRA, and also with AAOU, and issued a joint statement that basically says we condemn racial injustice and we're all for racial equality. Because again, liberty and justice for all really does mean liberty and justice for all. We also issued a couple of statements out to our membership that clarifies that, that we are in favor of making sure everyone has financial opportunity, and who better to do that than NAIFA members, folks that serve folks, in street corners, main street corners, all across this country. That's what we do every single day. We serve folks that are police officers and that are firefighters and that are teachers and do just about every type of trade that's imaginable. We also said, we had another one that went out this week that said, while we're in favor, of course, of making sure that everyone has access to financial products, we don't condone unlawful acts like looting and rioting and some of the poor conduct that just a very few of those folks that were out expressing their opinions engaged in. And of course, we don't want to ever see that happen. But NAIFA is proud by the fact that we do represent all aspects of American society, and we're proud of the work that you do representing everyone in your community and making sure they've got the right products and services so they can put together their right financial plan for their future. We We also have a website that is publicly facing called financialsecurity.org. If you've not had a chance to check it out, please do so, because it really goes right to, again, the point that we serve Main Street Americans. On it, we also have a resource kit that's available on COVID-19, tons of resources available for you to use when you communicate with your clients. So if you haven't been to financialsecurity.org, please take advantage of it. Part of what we've also got available to make sure you can reach every American out there is a Financial Wellness 101 course. And that is really it's financial literacy. It explains to folks all the different concepts they should be aware of, from risk protection products, as well as other ways to save for retirement and everything in between. So this kind of walks through in a 1-hour format the basic things that every American should be considering putting together their financial plan. If you are interested in putting together a Financial Wellness 101 program and present it in your area, we'll be sending you an email later where you can sit back and respond to it and let us know, and we'll give you the materials to be able to do that. Again, part of our outreach to serve every American that's out there. Speaking of serving every American, part of the way that we do that is by advocating, again, on your behalf before Congress and also before our state legislators around the country. This year, as you all know, is an election year, and it's going to be a critically important one. In fact, in just a little less than 5 months, we're going to be electing folks to serve in Congress, to serve in the White House, and then again, many of our states are holding their state elections at the same time. A way that we make sure the policymakers are paying attention to you and your clients is through our Political Action Committee, NAIFA. Now, we haven't talked much about NAIFA on many of our prior calls because they were open to non-members in addition to NAIFA members. As NAIFA Live is a members-only function, we can talk about it here. So do want to let you know that our goal for 2020 for this 1 year is to raise $1.75 million so that we can sit back and support candidates that support Main Street Americans. Right now, we've only raised about $750,000 of that $1.75 million goal. But we've got a lot of time left. And so what we like to do is, one, if you are an NAIFA chair, you received an email this morning that talks again about fundraising and encourages you to, again, be working with all of our members to make sure that funds come in. But if you have not yet had a chance to donate yet to NAIFA this year, please consider doing so, because it really helps us make sure we've got the right people in office that, again, are amenable towards the great work that you do as you serve your clients. And we're gonna do our best to reach that $1.75 million goal to make sure that we continue to have the impact that we need to with all of those candidates and members of Congress moving forward. And in addition to that, I wanted to mention that next week on Thursday, June 18th, we've got actually the true 130th anniversary actual day of NAIFA's founding. So think about it, 131 years ago on June the 18th, we were founded in Boston, Massachusetts. So we are going to have a special event that night to celebrate our 130th anniversary with a 1-hour long NAIFA happy hour. And that's going to take place from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. After we get done with this session, you'll get a link that will come to you that you can RSVP. Hopefully you'll attend. We'd love to see you there. It's a lot of fun. We did one of these during Impact Week, and it was just a great blast. Just an opportunity to unwind, to have a little fun. We'll have a little entertainment present. And then what we'll also do is we'll dedicate part of that time to also help us raise additional funds for NAIFA, again, so that our government relations function can continue to do the great work that it does on our behalf every single day. So if you can, please join us on Thursday, June the 18th. And again, thanks for all you do. We appreciate it in NAIFA. You're the reason that we are strong. You are the reason we are making a difference. And your work every single day continues to impact the lives of millions and millions of American families. So thank you for your dedication and service. Back to you, Zach.
Thank you, Kevin. It is now my pleasure to reintroduce NAIFA Greater Washington President Dan Altmeyer, loyal member since 1997.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us. I'm Dan Altmeyer, President of NAIFA Greater Washington, D.C. I'm delighted that our chapter is hosting the NAIFA Live event this month with our one of our own NAIFA leaders, Brian Haney. Brian Haney, or as many of the NAIFA community know him as B. Dizzle, has been involved in NAIFA for over 10 years. He is a 16-year industry veteran, operating an independent family-owned practice with his father and his brother in the greater Washington, D.C. area. A self-avowed tech junkie, He launched the That's My Financial Guy podcast in 2019 and is continually building and refining his firm's digital marketing framework. Brian has been fortunate to have reached much industry recognition, including MDRT Lifetime Qualifier since 2009, MDRT Court at the Table Qualifier since 2014, and a Top of the Table Qualifier for the last 3 years. He's also a NAIFA National Quality Award recipient each year since 2013. In 2019, Brian was named one of NAIFA's prestigious 4 under 40, and as well as their diversity champion in 2018. Brian bleeds NAIFA blue. He's an active board member on our board, NAIFA Greater Washington, D.C., currently serves as immediate past president. Brian serves on the NAIFA National YAC Committee, Independent Advisor Committee, and on NAIFA's Diversity and Inclusion Task Force. Finally, Brian acts as NAIFA's LACP chairman and has played a vital role in launching that designation. Brian was formerly a private banker and investment associate for SunTrust Investment Services and a licensed banker at Wachovia, where he began his career. He's a 2002 graduate of Indiana University, and now it's my honor to turn this over to our keynote speaker, Brian Heen.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. I am thrilled. I am pumped to be here in front of everybody. How you doing, NAIFA? Hopefully you're all doing well. Let's dig into this because I'm really excited to see how we can cover a lot of ground. Talking about developing your brand identity. Dan mentioned it earlier. I am absolutely a self-avowed tech junkie. So I just have a unique passion for taking advantage of the digital marketplace that we find ourselves in, and also really seeing our profession elevate itself using the digital marketplace. So hopefully I'm going to be able to cover some ground and hit some tips and tricks that'll apply to where you are and allow you to move the needle in terms of brand management and your digital identity. But I want to make sure everybody's paying attention. So before I even get started on my agenda, I want you to take advantage of using the Q&A function right now. And my man, John Richardson, is going to curate this for me. What questions do you have about branding, about being a digital influencer, about social media, anything that you've got going on that you want to make sure I'm aware of and you'd like to make sure that I cover? Go ahead and take a second now or throughout the rest of the presentation, use that Q&A function. And I'll make sure that I do the best I can to cover all your questions and hopefully give you a really good idea about where your space is and where you can go. Here's what I'm going to go through. I like to go high to low, macro to micro. So we're going to begin with brand thinking. I'm going to talk about how to develop your unique brand and how to communicate once you put your brand and the pieces of that puzzle together. How do you communicate that effectively across all mediums? So I think that's one of maybe the biggest areas of mistake that I find that are made, not just specific to our industries, but to frankly anybody that's trying to manage a brand. And then lastly, we're going to end with some very, very granular ways to digitize yourself or to improve your digital visibility and to hopefully go out there and actually create a digital marketing and engagement program that's going to revolutionize your practice and move you forward. But really, this is all going to be about a paradigm shift, use the Lilly term. How can we elevate our thinking away from sales, marketing, body counts, insurance, and assets under management towards brand development and engagement? So close your eyes for a second, and I want you to think about the last amazing restaurant experience that you had. What did you eat? Bet you can still smell the food as the waiter brings it out. Did you have dessert? Maybe a few libations? What was so great about it? Oh, and did you keep that experience to yourself? Now I want you to think about the best vacation experience you've ever had? Can you feel the wind still in your hair? Maybe the smell of the sandy beach, or if you're are you a surfer? Are you a sailor? Are you a snowboarder? Maybe it's that brisk, snowy air as you're whizzing down the slopes. Who was with you? And of course, when you returned, did you hide the photos and never speak of it to anyone? Why am I talking about food and vacations? Because these moments connect with us on a deeper level than just food and fun. They activate different parts of our brain and involve different, deeper levels of meaning and relationships. And they're the things that we plan for, the things that we look forward to, and they likely connect us with our loved ones, and they meet us where our love language might be. And for those of you, I'm going to go back to that restaurant example. I got plenty of wonderful memories of anything tacos. But the key to all of this is really, what is it like to experience something exceptional and extraordinary? And when we do that, when we have this collective type of experience, do we tend to share that type of experience with others, or do we keep it to ourselves? All right. Now, as you're thinking about the word experience, what is it like for someone to experience you as a professional? Is it just about buying products and services, delivering policies? Is it investing? Have you ever helped somebody with a claim? Or is it about more than that? Do you want to be seen as somebody that goes beyond what you do functionally to something that you are in terms of the life experience that you can deliver? And this is what I'm talking about, brand thinking. Brand thinking is big picture thinking. It doesn't just encompass what you do functionally, such as managing assets, like I said, or delivering insurance. Brand thinking connects with how your clients and prospects feel about you, what meaning you add to their lives, and how their world is better because they have you in it. So the critical truth I hope everybody can embrace right now is this: people are not buying your stuff or your expertise. They're buying you. Brand thinking is about brand you. So now let's start to get into, what are we going to do about this? I need everybody to respond to this in the Q&A. How do you answer the question, this is what I do for a living? So I want to get some people. Let's see, John, if somebody's brave enough to answer the question, what do you do? This is your elevator pitch. What do you say at a cocktail conversation? What do you do at networking events?
All right, Brian, looks like I help people protect what's important to them. I'm a financial advisor. I sell life insurance and annuities. I help my clients grow and protect their wealth. Those are the first four that showed up.
Love it. Thank you for engaging with us. I'm going to tell you how I answer this question. I help people make the financial decisions that they want to make, but they just don't know how to make. I'm passionate about empowering people to live enriched lives and not be held captive by financial stress. So my role is really part educator and part advocate to help clear through the confusion and enable my clients to choose wisely and move forward with confidence. So I guess you could say I'm in the human transformation business. Now, I'm not trying to help us refine our elevator pitches. That's not the point of this. The point of it is to be able to step back. A lot of the times when we answer these questions, even if we have something like what I shared or something like we've answered, a lot of it deals with our functional capacity, what we actually do and deliver. And I want us to be able to, again, broaden our horizon, think bigger, and really think in terms of the audience's perspective. What would it be like not just to get insurance, but develop a holistic relationship with you as a professional? And how can you start to communicate that? Next question. All right. Hopefully you're still awake and engaged. Why do you do what you do? Perhaps a little bit more important than just what you do. Anybody brave enough to tell me why you do what you do in a short Q&A bar? All right, we got somebody.
All right, got impact, I got make a difference, support my family and honor the memory of my dad,
Ooh, I love that.
to help people, and to serve my clients and make new friends.
Perfect. Well, so what I didn't hear was nobody answered, hey, I rolled out of bed one day and thought I might give insurance a try. I think what I'm hearing thematically and why starting with why is so important. And for those of you that were able to catch the Deirdre Van Ness presentation, she talks about this and has a powerful story of her own. But our answer about why we do what we do is all about what we believe. It's all about what's valuable to us. It addresses motivation, and it's absolutely considerably more compelling reason for someone to want to work with us and choose us over countless others that do what we do. And this picture right here is my why. I have two amazing women at home that I love to death and they love me. And so what I do as a professional is really to honor them, to have a great family experience, and to be able to know that when I come home, what I did as a professional was help other families the same way that I want to help my own family. Now, how many of you have ever heard of Tom's shoes? Hopefully some of you have. Why am I talking about shoes? Even if you have Tom's shoes or you bought them, you might not be aware of their story. Tom's came out of nowhere, but they started in 2006 and rapidly grew to a multi-million-dollar shoe company. Now, how would you think that's possible? Well, it's because Tom's is a powerful example of social entrepreneurship, something that I'm very excited about. So for Tom's, it's not about the shoes. They developed their entire business model for, if you buy one shoe, we're going to donate a pair of shoes to a person in need that doesn't have any, because they don't think anybody should ever go without having shoes. So their company ethos is all about, we're in the business of improving lives. They weren't trying to build a shoe company to be the next Nike or have the best stock price or even make the most comfortable shoes. They believe in being a force for global good and an agent of change. So going from 0 to several hundred million in sales, and I think they just recently recorded that they've donated over 100 million shoes since they started. Now that's a powerful story that talks about a brand but doesn't really have anything to do with what that brand delivers. So I want you to think about that. What story can you be telling now that maybe you haven't told before? And I know a lot of us are really good, but storytelling to me is it's a big passion of mine, because storytelling is the oldest form of human communication. So it's extraordinarily powerful. Everybody connects well with the story. So as you re-examine at a high level what we talked about, what it might be like for somebody to experience you, because by the way, we're in the experience economy now. And why should somebody work with you? Not because you have the best products and services and all the other stuff. How can you start to reinforce to your clients that you're a valuable asset and that they aren't going to have as good a life as they'd like without you? So I want to tell you a little bit about my story. It might surprise you to know this, but the foundation for my business success all started when I was a young 8-year-old, and I decided to ask my father at the breakfast table one morning, "Hey, Dad, can I have an allowance?" Which, look, to me, it seemed like a completely reasonable question for an 8-year-old to ask, right? My father felt differently, though, and to this day, I don't remember exactly how he told me no, but I do remember not hearing the coveted words, "Sure, now that you're old enough, that seems fair." The way my father tells it is pretty funny. His reasoning was that it just doesn't make sense to start paying a kid money simply because they've aged. And believe me, since I still work with him today, he still believes in that mantra. He's the father. My father is the son of the 2 Depression-era Indiana farmers. So, you know, his entire life, he'd always worked for any money he'd received, and he felt like this question was an opportunity to teach me a lesson. So fast forward a couple weeks, my dad presents me with a newspaper ad, says, "Paper delivery position wanted." And he framed it to me as a great way to make money instead of getting an allowance, because the amount I would be eligible to receive for allowance was 0. And so as a naive 8-year-old, I said, "Sure, I guess so." And just like that, I had my first job, a job that I started from when I was 8 and did until I was 18 and graduated from high school. And it's a job that gave me a partial scholarship to go to college. But it was a job that taught me so much, because delivering newspapers 365 days a year to 72 houses in my neighborhood every day at 5 a.m. is definitely not every young boy's dream, let me tell you that. But besides the meager amount of income it provided to me, it was really formative, because I learned some of the best professional lessons that I could possibly learn, such as the first thing my dad told me before we even got started: if you're going to do anything, do it with excellence. And that sounded good to me, but I don't quite understand what that meant. You see, my dad would teach me, you don't just throw newspapers onto everyone's lawn, because why? That means that you're just giving everybody this experience. The inconvenience of having to go out there because somebody was careless enough to just haphazardly throw a paper, and now you got to find it. God forbid if it rained the night before and is somewhat wet, might be in the bushes, maybe a dog chewed it or peed on it. This is not kind of what we were going for, right? And as insignificant as delivering a paper can be, it's an opportunity to care for people, right? So the lesson that I learned right away was about considering my audience and the fact that I could serve somebody. So what we did was we walked every single paper up to the door. And if you had a storm door that was unlocked, we put it inside your door and shut it. And if your door was locked, we put it underneath your mat, so that no matter what, you didn't have to bat an eyelash. You didn't have to get gussied up. You could just go right out, and there's your paper, easy as pie. That to me was about, if you're going to do anything, do it with excellence. And I just, that has stayed with me ever since. And it's the way that I now think of our brand, and it's the way that I hope all of us can start to consider ourselves when we come to our own professional arena. Because what we do is about providing human dignity. Now, I did that as a paper boy just by avoiding the indignity that naturally came. And I don't know if all of us remember that old Paperboy video game where the whole point of that game was to knock over somebody's mailbox, right? But we provide significant dignity because we're in the people business. Everything we do as professionals has a face to it. From the smallest auto policy to the largest multi-million-dollar 412E plan and everything in between, everything we deliver as a professional is designed to make society better and to care for people that matter. So, we've talked about why. We've talked about developing a new story, right? Being able to engage and use the most powerful form of human communication to your advantage. Now I want us to piece together the elements of make up a brand. So I'm going to go through this pretty fast. I hope you're ready to start to take some really good notes. What do you think of when you see this image? Well, chances are, you might not be aware of this, Disney invented something quite remarkable. It's called a money tree. That's right, because all they need to do is shake the money tree wherever you go, and wherever the Disney logo is, money just falls right out of your pocket. But the reality is, even though that's not an actual invention, all of us know that when we see this logo, we have certain things that we think about in mind. Family friendly, fun, great escape, experience, that big word experience. And Disney is a rabid advocate of managing and protecting its brand because it matters. The entire company's excellence is built on its brand reputation. So what about my logo? Because it's a pretty fun story. Having a mascot certainly makes us stand out because frankly, most people don't realize this. The bulldog is actually the #1 mascot in America. I'll give you a couple seconds to think about how true that is. But we have a family connection to bulldogs. So as we were thinking about what's the best way for us to communicate who we are as professionals, some of the things that we were looking at when we went through a brand kind of survey of ourselves, started to pay attention to some words that stood out to us. Loyal, extraordinarily caring, best in breed, dependable. And all of a sudden, we also realized that we like to have a lot of fun. If you couldn't tell, I'm not a party to not wanting to say a joke here or there or laugh and have a good time. And bulldogs, if you've ever been around one, they're kind of funny. And so, you know, bringing all of that together, it just seemed real reasonable for us to take advantage of that and have that communicate a little bit more about who we are as a company. So we adopted that logo is actually our company dog. His name is Otis. And, you know, we've embodied that and made it a part of our brand experience. So our logo has a story behind it. And that's what I want you to start to realize, that there are so many ways that you can be telling your story in a lot of different mediums, and a lot of ways that you're interacting with clients and prospects. All right, we'll talk about our bio. I'm sure without going on LinkedIn and pulling all of yours up, there's probably a lot of bios that read just like this. Hey, I'm great, and I've been great for a while. I grew up great, went to a great school, launched a great professional career. Here's the list of great things I've accomplished. I know Dan Altmeyer did a great job of talking about some of mine. At my firm, we offer the following great products and services. I think you should work with me so we can be great together. Now, I'm saying that kind of glibly, but the reality is, I would venture to guess most of the bios that we write about ourselves are from our perspective. So here's what I would ask of you. What would it be like if your clients or your target audience wrote your bio? Would it sound different? That's some of the thinking that I want us to be considering, right? Who wrote the bio? It doesn't, if the bio is talking about why you're great to your audience, you're probably missing it. You want to be meeting your audience where they are. So you might take a look, and here's what I would encourage you to do. Go ahead and look me up on LinkedIn if you're not already connected to me already, and read how I've written mine. Guarantee you it sounds very different from the way you might have written yours. What about your website, right? Are people going to land on it and want to explore it? And when they come to your website, what do you want them to do? People say that there's about a 3-second window to get somebody to respond and take action. So if they find you digitally, are they going to land? Are they going to stay? Or are they just going to be confused and leave? We got to think about these things. What about your profile picture? Are you a glorified version of a driver's license photo? Or worse yet, maybe a cropped social media picture where you kind of see somebody else's arm on your shoulder. Obviously, mine's a little bit different, and it's intentionally so, because it does stand out, and because even a picture can tell a story. I'm not looking at my audience. I'm looking off to the side. I've got a vision. I'm looking ahead. The picture really is worth 1,000 words, and you need to think about that for any picture you have out there. What about the colors behind your company? Most of us probably have never thought about the psychology behind color, but there's an emotion that all of these colors are designed to evoke and are connected to. And probably if you're like John D. Richardson, you're looking up, trying to find some of your favorite companies on there and why they have certain logos, right? Mass Mutual, a company I did business with for a while and still do, of course. Trust, dependability, blue. NAIFA, blue, right? I don't know what Northwestern says, but that's okay. You got youthful, bold, State Farm, right? We can all kind of see how this comes together. And so I'm not suggesting that you have to go out there and just pick random colors because they excite you, but it's important to understand that colors do matter. And if you have the chance to, be involved in this type of a selection, you want to do it strategically and not just haphazardly. And don't forget the rest of the ways that you communicate, right? Marketing materials. Here's a big point that I want to encourage all of us. For any of us that have a semi-independent practice or maybe work with multiple different companies, do we regularly pull those companies' marketing materials off the shelves and use them with clients? And while there's nothing wrong with that, we're not controlling the messaging. And the point that I want to get across right now is a term called cognitive dissonance, which simply means, are you unintentionally creating confusion because the way that you might be communicating in one part of your practice now starts to sound a little bit different? Perhaps, for example, if I took a Jackson National thing off the shelf and I showed it to them, and the way that Jackson National presents information is a little bit different than the way I like to, all of a sudden, even though my client might not show it to me visually, I might be creating dissonance. I might be creating a barrier to them wanting to explore more unintentionally. So again, brand thinking means you really want to control and be thoughtful about all the ways that you're communicating. Here's another thing that I'm going to encourage you to do. Go ahead and give me a call on my cell phone. I won't answer it, and you can listen to my voicemail. Do you realize that we get people's voicemails so often? But why not take advantage of the fact that somebody's going to get your voicemail and leave you a message? Why not have a little bit of fun there? Yes, you might have to have certain disclosures. You might have to say certain things, but you can have a preamble that's kind of fun and leave somebody with a good feeling rather than the bland, hey, this is Brian, leave me a message, beep, right? And let's not forget what we wear. I've got my, company logo going on here, right? Staying on brand. Again, no cognitive dissonance, carrying your brand across every medium of engagement. Consistency is key. I can tell you I've run into a lot of inconsistency in the way that people produce content, communicate. You're doing one thing on social media, and yet when I come into your office, a very different experience. I mentioned attire. Yes, this picture is part of the Haney team, and look at us. We've got uniformity across the board. We've got the same ties. We've got bulldog shoes going on, and we got bulldog socks. It's, it's not just fun, but it creates and communicates a certain message. And it definitely stands out from a lot of other vendors and a lot of other people that, are in the same industry. They just look at us differently because we've been extremely mindful about the way that we connect and engage. So how can you start to differentiate yourself? And now I really want to get to some more practical things about not just, okay, we put all these pieces of the brand together. How can you stand out from the crowd? Because NAIFA has over 20,000 members, and that's not the full representation of our industry. There's a lot of people that do what we do. I think the first thing that I would encourage you to do is be known for the things that matter to you. Part of your why story, right? I talked about going all the way back to being 8 years old and things that my father taught me. And I'm fortunate I still work with him today, but even if that's not the case for you, you're part of your why story goes beyond what you do professionally. The thing that I'm probably the most proud of in my career is the fact that NAIFA very kindly recognized me as their diversity champion, because diversity, inclusion, and creating an equitable and equal working environment and stamping out racism and inequity and injustice is a passion of mine and has been for as long as I can remember. And so the fact that I've intentionally built that into my practice and made it known is something that has actually allowed my brand to be elevated above others, because I haven't approached diversity for the sake of business. I've approached diversity for the sake of diversity. What can that look like for you? By the way, why don't you get a little bit of alphabet soup? We already mentioned LACP, we got LUTCF. NAIFA's got some fantastic designations that can separate you and allow you to stand apart from your competition, especially in Annuity Awareness Month, right? If you don't have your LACP, I don't know why, but you absolutely should. LUTCF, again, another thing, but getting as much alphabet soup behind your name certainly makes you stand out from the crowd. And it also demonstrates to the public that you're specialized, you're serious, you're somebody that's a subject matter expert, somebody worth listening to, somebody that if I see, John Smith and that's it, and I see John G. Richardson, CFP, CLU, CHFC, all that other stuff, if I'm choosing between two parties, likelihood whether or not I've met either of those two parties, I'm going to go with the person that has some designations behind them. And then serve in your community, serve in your local NAIFA, connect to a chamber of commerce and join the membership committee. Find ways to do things for other people. Not everything you do to stand out has to be functioning through that end result of growing your practice. And in fact, sometimes the best ways to distinguish yourself as a brand is to not be about business, to be about other people's business. Serving other people, coming alongside them, helping your community thrive is an exceptional way for you to be differentiating yourself and develop a true brand that's about you. And by the way, go ahead and get on a board or two, because that definitely looks good, and it elevates your profile exponentially in the eyes of other people. I already mentioned NAIFA's got a ton of resources to help you out. Another great way is to be known for the type of business that you run. The NAIFA Quality Award demonstrates that. To get that award, you have to have a business that sticks. It's not just about performance, it's about keeping people on the books and growing a practice that's quality, not just quantity. And Kevin started off, NAIFA's developed a fantastic consumer-facing website. So you need to understand NAIFA's behind you 100%. And if you don't know all of the resources that they have, it's time for you to start exploring them, because there's a ton of things that you can pull off the shelf that only allows you to better distinguish yourself and enhance your brand. All right, let's get into how do we become digitally relevant? Because I've got to tell you this, it really doesn't matter what type of practice we have. We all have to embrace digital transformation, because we are in the digital economy. And by the way, if I'm not going to have this be a polling question, but by show of hands for a room that's empty, if you think technology is going to be rolled back, that it's just a fad, go ahead and raise your hand. Since I see nobody's hands are raised, I'm glad that you're still with me on this. Now, it's not just about being on every medium and channel. As I mentioned before, and hopefully you've gotten this point a couple times, your audience should determine how you develop your digital framework and your marketing strategy, because you're trying to connect with people and meet them where they are. So that also means don't go where they aren't. Be very selective and strategic, because that'll give you the best chances for success. All right, time for our first poll. See if we can get this up. I want to know what type of practice that you have, so I can know who's in the audience and be sure I'm hitting on every type of, whether you're a state farmer, an independent, do you work for a career agency, what do you do? Let's see what we got going on. One of the questions I know I get very often, depending on what type of practice you have, especially if you work for a corporate entity. So let's say, for example, you're a Mass Mutual agent, or you're a State Farm agent, or you have a larger company that really kind of has its own brand that you have to use to some degree or another. Well, I hope, and I'm going to encourage you to understand this. That doesn't mean that you can't take advantage of a lot of what I'm talking about, because the key to navigating a brand is to not just understand what your own value proposition is, but then how do you take that corporate brand and weave it together so that way it becomes a magnification of who you are. I think a lot of times we step away and we think the corporate brand is going to do the work that we have to do, and we let the company speak for itself. But the companies don't speak for the agents or the professionals. They speak for their products, they speak for their services, they speak for their stockholders. So don't rely on a larger big brand to do the marketing and advertising for you. That's why we really do have to still distinguish ourselves, even if we have a powerful corporate brand behind us. There's a way to take advantage of that so that way you can use it, rather than just kind of saying, well, I'm just going to let State Farm run all their ads and hopefully enough people will call me up, because I promise you that's not going to work. So can't tell the results yet. Let's see. Hopefully Zach or someone can give me a chance. Well, we'll keep going, because it's not going to matter. There we go. Look at this. All right. Healthy portion doing life and annuities. So good. Hopefully that means after this presentation's over, we're going to have a ton more LACP applicants. A lot of people doing assets under management, it looks like. We had a few multi-lines and some benefits folk like myself. Awesome. Great. So I'm going to cover all of this. So there's going to be something for everybody. Like I mentioned, disruption's already happened. So the largest movie house doesn't own a single film, right? The majority of movies and things that we watch are now consumed on a personal device. The largest taxi company in the world doesn't own a single car. Think about these things for a second. Digital disruption has happened to every single industry. And by the way, that's only been magnified in this pandemic environment, where we're seeing what it's like to not be able to have people coming in and seeing you. And if that's going to make a significant difference in your business, that should be a cause for concern. But I know there's got to still be at least a naysayer or two out there that says, yeah, I've been doing my practice really well. How did I build my practice? Referrals, it's doing great, it's fine. I don't really know. So, okay, this is for the naysayers. For those of you that run an assets under management practice, guess what? There's now over $50 billion being managed by computers. And that number's not going down, it's going to go up. So try this one on for size. Hey, Alexa, balance my portfolio for me. Yep, because guess what? You're not just competing against awesome people like John D. Richardson, you're competing against robots. Where's my DI geek? Where's the DI concierge at? I know he just had a baby, so anybody do disability or even in the group benefit space, I want to introduce you to Breeze. I don't know if you've met Breeze. If you haven't, check it out. Go to www.meetbreeze.com and see that this is direct to consumer disability for a mass audience. No agents, no commissions. Which company do you think supports this website? You can go ahead and answer very quickly if you happen to know the answer in the Q&A box. See if we have any takers on this one. What kind of company is going to do direct to consumer disability? I'll tell you, it's a surety, right? Not an insignificant disability player, probably not as well known as a Guardian or some of the other ones, but a serious contender. And yes, they have a direct to consumer product. And for the largest portion of my audience today, my life insurance folks, how I love you, how I love life insurance myself. The old tried and true, whether you're an independent, whether you're one of the career shops, my Northwesterns, my New York Lifes, I want to introduce you to Haven Life. Maybe you've never heard of it. It's a fantastic direct-to-consumer term life insurance website, right? Quotes are good, real rates are better. Who do you think is behind Haven Life? I know some people probably already know the answer given the fact that, let's see, John, did we get some answers here?
No answers.
Awesome. Mass Mutual. That's right. One of the largest and oldest career agency shops in the country has developed a direct-to-consumer product that has no agent involvement and pays no commissions. Now, I'm not saying or denigrating anything by telling you this, but if that doesn't take a second for you to pause and say, wait a minute, the company that supports the career agent model is now figuring out ways to make money without agents, at least you need to take a moment and just think about what that means. Because the reality is this, a significant portion of any person's financial experience can be done without a professional. And that's not going to change. Now, whether or not that's good, that's right, or that's something that you think the target audience that you serve is going to be interested in, let me tell you, it's only going to grow. So I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying this to excite you, even if you're feeling a little disturbed, and here's why. You need to prepare for this, but you need to prepare the right way, because we have a great opportunity to perpetuate our practices in ways that we've never been able to before. So next poll, I need to know where my audience right now, those of you on here, where are you online digitally currently? What are you using? If TikTok is number one, I'm going to fall out of my chair. So you'll have to give me a second. So I haven't figured that one out. I'm going to be honest. I'll tell you right now. But let's see. Hopefully, you're not one of those other that doesn't select any of these, because if I haven't scared you enough to make sure that you've got some form of digital presence, hopefully you're on at least one of these platforms. Reaching the next generation of clients really means taking marketing and engagement approaches to a new level and connecting with our audience in a more substantive way than we ever have possible. All right, this is kind of what I thought. So the majority of us are on Facebook and LinkedIn, which is great. So I see there are some good Twitter users and Instagram. Good. No TikTokers yet. Okay, good. Because I'll admit now, I don't have a slide for that either. I'm very impressed to see we've got a few folks on YouTube. So this is awesome. Fantastic. So why is this an opportunity? If 93% of buying decisions today are influenced by social and digital media, then you have a tremendous opportunity to become an influencer. 62% of millennials and Gen Zers feel that online content drives their loyalty. I already told you the story about Tom's shoes. People aren't buying their shoes because they're the best shoes. It's because they believe in the brand itself and what it represents to them. Fun, right? Having more fun, being more engaging, allowing people to know you in a more personal way is extremely important driver for the next generation. And you might be in a situation where you're saying, I don't have a practice. Most of my clients are near retirement age, and that's great. But if I'm looking 3, 5, 10, 15, and 20 years down the road, at some point, this is going to be your target audience. So if you're not there yet, you will be. And if you are, good, then these things should be encouraging to you. Being able to be more fun and more engaging should be something we should all get excited about, because guess what? Usually when I say, hey, I'm a financial advisor, I do insurance, that's the non-narcotic cure for insomnia. The response I usually get is, right? So let's find a better way. And here's the pinnacle of all of this. 90% of our future market will share their brand preference online. So what does that mean? As my good friend Eric Hallman likes to say, word of mouth is now world of mouth. If you do this right, you can create an army of brand ambassadors. We want to talk about the power of referrals. Try putting that on digital steroids and seeing what it does for your practice. But the current state of affairs is pretty sad. Most of the content that gets put out, especially by our industry, turns people off rather than attracts them to us. We're not really helping people because we're not really meeting them where they are and helping them navigate their everyday problems. So we're going to have to work on changing the way that we engage. The key word I want to talk about now is engagement. The power of digital medium is that it's a two-way medium, right? We have the opportunity to have proactive marketing connections and manage our brand in such a way that invites people to connect back with us. We can draw in prospects more so than ever before. So how do you use digital medium to your advantage? Well, if you haven't Googled yourself, I think I'd encourage you to start there. First thing you want to do, you need to see how you look digitally at the present time before you even start to change things and create your own digital strategy. If it's hard to find you, that's a problem. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody's name should be #1 in a Google search, but it is really important for you to pretend like you're a consumer and see what it's like. Is it easy to find you online or is it not? And see what kind of things show up and why. Because some of the stuff that comes out, depending on where it is in the ranking, is really all about how Google's analytics work. And maybe some of the stuff that you don't want to be up higher is for a certain reason. So you want to be aware of this. Let's build out a digital framework now. I mentioned before, and I'm going to talk about why podcasting for me became something that was going to be a representation of how we were going to enhance our digital framework. But it was a very thoughtful process. The reality is my target audience, as we were looking at and studying it and understanding its demographics, its buying behavior, and creating a real buyer persona, we recognized that, oh, guess what? A ton of the people I'm trying to reach, they are consuming podcasts. And they're consuming podcasts not that are fun or interesting, but NPR and ones. So there was an opportunity in the space to connect in a meaningful way using that medium. And there was a high likelihood that I was going to connect and be able to drive content that they might find valuable, because there was already, my audience was already telling me they had an appetite for what I could put out. So I said, okay, great. I'm going to have to figure out how to do this, do it professionally, and then do it in a manner that, you know, created some value to an audience that might not yet know me personally or have ever had an experience with me. And this is a huge opportunity for you, because what used to take months of pounding the pavement, cocktail conversations, networking events, refining good referral language, meeting with COIs, right? We can accelerate all of that through digital platforms. But the most important point that it comes to being an effective digital maven and being an influencer, content is king. So I'm going to be very granular now and hopefully leave you with some ideas as to, okay, now I've got my brand, I've pulled all my brand together, I want to go digital, I'm thinking about where my audience is, I'm going to align the strategy to meet my audience where they are. Now, how do I do things functionally? Well, looks like most of you are already doing this, and that's great. If you're not, that's okay, but make sure that you're considering your audience first as you're building these strategies out. Here's one thing I want to caution you with. If content is king, how does the content that you put out get produced? For a lot of us, there's a compliance component. There is for me as well. And so we've probably heard of things like Hearsay Social or other Marketing Pro, where it's kind of a set it and forget it opportunity to integrate across your social media and just use it so that way you can make sure you're consistently producing content. While that's very important because it drives engagement, the problem is if you're not really doing that through a brand filter, then guess what? And this happens to me literally every day I'm online. I see the same post by different professionals in our industry. And I know why. It's because it comes from an automatically generated posting thing. And while that's good from a compliance standpoint, that does you a significant brand disservice. So you need to be more thoughtful as it comes to anything that you're going to put out there from a content site, even if it comes from somewhere else. How can you personalize it so that way somebody that receives it sees that you put thought into it, that you didn't just set something up on set it and forget it mode. And I think the other thing is, how do you engage your audience in two-way conversation? This is something that we're notoriously bad at doing. I already mentioned we write our bios talking at our audience. Well, one of the most effective ways to digitize yourself and create that army of ambassadors is to have an effective digital footprint. I don't know how many of you remember Facebook's commercials toward the end of last year. There was a fantastic one that resonated well with me because it was a daddy and his daughter, and they were going to a Mets game or a Yankees game. And there was something about them jarring back and forth because he was messing with other dads about which team he was rooting for. That whole thing, if you remember it, was talking about Facebook groups. We are in the era of hyper customization, right? And all of us can create these affinity types of relationships. And this is a great opportunity for us now, since that's what we're trying to do to be better marketers, to be more niche and to be more targeted and more focused. Use that to your advantage when you go online. Intentionally connect, be a part of the right groups. Start to be an influencer, start to ask questions. You don't have to produce content that makes you look great. Ask people in the group the right question and get a conversation going. Take advantage of that two-way communication that we can achieve in the right digital media, right? And use Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and social ads to your advantages. You might also want to consider building a microsite. If you know that there's a common problem that you solve or something that you specialize in, maybe you buy a URL and build out a little site that just is built around solving that one problem. I'm not going to take too much time on this, but if you want to see a good example of what our company has done, you can go to associationrisk.com. Associations are one of the largest markets that for our practice that we concentrate on, and we do a lot of insurance planning for associations. And so we decided, hey, what better way to develop a better digital footprint than to go and build microsites that can attract people who are searching for certain issues, not necessarily searching for us. And now, last thing I want to talk about is really, how do you measure success? Because I think sometimes we're so focused on calls, smiles, dials, scenes, apps, and appointments, because that's drilled into most of us. And I'm not saying that that doesn't have relevance, but sometimes what you're doing to create, engage, and elevate your digital brand is not always going to have a direct client I received mechanism. So the first thing I would focus on is, what is your engagement like? Are you getting people to connect with you through engagements, share? Do you have people commenting? If most of your content is seen, but nobody's responding, nobody's engaging, that should tell you something. So engagement is really key. And frankly, that's probably the first thing I'd want you to really measure and create a metrics for. Am I putting content out there that people want to interact with? If I'm not, I probably need to think differently about how I'm producing things. What opportunities can you find to connect on a more personal level in a more meaningful way with the people that are already in your sphere of influence? So celebrate, you know, don't become a serial liker. You don't have to like everything in all your connections, but find meaningful ways to celebrate birthdays and achievements. And take it a step further, start asking your clients, hey, what's been a win for you in the last 6 months? I'd love to share and celebrate that with you. Maybe even highlight that achievement online if you'd let me. Fantastic way to build brand value and relevance. Can you generate virtual appointments? Hopefully all of us have been able to do that to some degree because we've had to, because we're not going into people's homes and businesses, right? How do you get online leads to work for you? You know, sometimes I think we have this sort of, if I do the right scripting and reach out on LinkedIn, people are going to then turn around and contact me. That's not always going to be the case. So online leads a lot of times about getting people to engage with your content in a manner that's called inbound marketing, right? Having people come to you because they found something that you put out there that's valuable. And the last thing is hopefully you're getting the ultimate client conversion through all of your efforts, because now you're a brand people want to work with. So I got to wrap up because I want to make sure we got a little Q&A time left. Questions, comments, concerns, needs, desires, longings, or considerations. John, help me out.
Hey, Brian, thank you so much for your time today. We are at a little after the hour, so we are going to wrap up. But if you are willing to, we could follow up with individuals and their questions post-event, if that's something you'd be willing to do.
That sounds great. Yeah, please
Awesome.
send me an email, check out my stuff, and whatever I can do to help you out, I'm happy to do it.
Great. Well, thank you again for your time today. We really appreciate you joining us. And everyone else, you know, thank you for joining us today for our NAIFA Live virtual event. Be sure to check out live.naifa.org for future NAIFA Live events. And I want to thank you one last time. Stay safe, take care, and we will see you next time. Have a great afternoon.